tier list is what we're going over today. We're talking about the wide receiver position. We have a ton of wide receivers coming out. I have 15 in this video that I have tiered out based on where I believe the fantasy relevance will be, and this will be pre-draft. Let's go ahead and throw up the board right now. We're looking at, we have 2 in the S tier, 2 in the A tier, I have 2 in the B tier, 3 in the C tier, and 6 in the D tier. Let's go over the first guy we are talking about in the S tier. Who else than Marvin Harrison Jr.? This guy is a prototypical type of wide receiver. Everybody is excited to see where he lands. Does he end up landing with the Cardinals? Does he end up landing with the Patriots? Does somebody trade up to grab Marvin Harrison Jr.? Either way it goes, he looks like he will be a generational talent. Let's look a little bit deeper for Marvin Harrison Jr. He is a 6'4", 205-pound wide receiver. Is being deemed again as the best wide receiver prospect in recent memory. Even go as far as saying that he is an elite, can't miss type of wide receiver. So he checks all the boxes really to be elite in the NFL. He's physical, athletic, a technician, definitely when he's running his routes. Like I said, 6'4", you can't beat this guy. He is almost like a Megatron 2.0. He wins right off the line of scrimmage, possesses elite hands with ball tracking ability. I love watching his athleticism, especially along the sidelines. He can make some spectacular catches and prove that he belongs as the #1 wide receiver. Ohio State used him early and often. I think he's going to be also the go-to type of wide receiver from day one for whatever NFL team uses this guy. Now, look at the S tier again. We have another guy in here, and I have somebody very close to him. We're talking about Malik Nabers, the wide receiver out of LSU. He is yet another wide receiver that I think is quite decently close to Marvin Harrison. I think it's Marvin Harrison clearly as the 1A guy, but 1AB, if you would be Malik Nabers. He is going to be a phenomenal wide receiver. He actually relates very close to Jamar Chase and the numbers and the size and athleticism that he was producing. I think Malik Nabers could be a similar type of prospect. Let's look a little bit deeper into Malik Nabers. We look at him. He is a 6', 200-pound wide receiver. He declared for the draft after ranking top 8 nationally in catches, yards, and touchdowns per game. He's a twitchy wide receiver and elusive as he just racks up yards after the catch. He's an explosive playmaker with versatile skill set. He combines exciting deep speed with an angry run after the catch ability. He has a good combination of hands and a lot of speed, a little bit of athleticism, makes some spectacular catches. He displays some precise timing, especially when he's pinpointing this football to bring it in, and he looks to make a play after the catch. He was very good for Jaden Daniels, and even with Brian Thomas Jr. on the outside of him, Nabers completed and shown that he was the man at LSU, even with Brian Thomas putting up the numbers that he did. I think he's very close. I think he tested very well, looked very good at his pro day. I'm excited to see where Malik Nabers goes. Let's go ahead and look at the board real quick here as we see the S tier. We have those 2 wide receivers slotted in here. Now we got the A tier, the B tier, C tier, and D tier still to go over. Looking at the A tier right now, with the first guy we have in this tier would be Rome Odunze, the wide receiver out of Washington. Yet another wide receiver. I think he's clearly in a tier below the Harrison and Malik Nabers, but I think he's kind of close. He's up there. He can be a dominant force in the NFL as well, and I can't wait to see where he goes. Does he end up going mid-first round? Does he end up going a little bit later first round, or does somebody trade up and surprise in the top 10 to grab Rome Odunze? We're going to have to wait and see. I'm excited to see that. But Rome Odunze, let's dive a little bit deeper into what he was doing. So Rome Odunze was a 6'3", 215-pound wide receiver. He led the nation in receiving yards with 1,640 yards. He clearly has that X wide receiver size at 6'3", nice play strength and the ability to high point with a wide wingspan. Odunze has a big catch radius and should be the first round pick in the upcoming NFL draft if you have to ask me. He can exploit zone coverage by finding those holes with little to no effort. He consistently attacks the ball and snatches the ball out of the air, really from his body. He's not really using a lot of the body catches and let it hit in his pads. He's out there, he's catching the football with his hands, and I like to see that from a wide receiver, especially in the NFL. When you use your body to catch a lot of the balls, those cornerbacks, they're quick enough to get their hand in there and swat the ball away. I think Rome Odunze should be a nice, clean wide receiver in the NFL. Let's talk about the next guy we have here in the A tier. We're going Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver out of LSU. He was the wide receiver on the other side of Malik Nabers, and I think he's shown that he could be a beast too. Now, If Malik Neighbors wasn't on the field, I think a lot more people would be talking about Brian Thomas Jr. I think I have him higher in my rankings than probably a lot of people do, but I do believe in this guy. Let's dive a little bit deeper to what he can give you. Brian Thomas is a 6'4", 205-pound wide receiver, athletic wide receiver, very quick feet, explosive vertical threat with very good body control and the ability to high point that football. He has long arms and good ball tracking ability. I would say he has a large catch radius and he's physically dominant on the outside. He had over 1,000 yards receiving and 15 touchdowns as the wide receiver 2 behind Neighbors. Even with being the wide receiver 2, Thomas nearly matched Neighbors 17.6 yards per catch with 17.3 yards per catch of his own. Like I was telling you guys earlier, I think Brian Thomas can be an absolute monster in the NFL. I think I'm excited to see where he goes. I think in my latest mock draft, if I remember right, if you guys can go back and see, I think it was the Bengals that I had him going to, another LSU wide receiver going over there with Joe Burrow. I think that would be a nice fit for them. But let's go ahead and look over the field right now and see what we have here. We've got the 2 filled in right now for the S tier. We also have the 2 filled in for the A tier and I have yet another 2 coming in here for the B tier. Let's go ahead and go over right now. The first guy I have here in the B tier will be Troy Franklin, that wide receiver out of Oregon, another lanky wide receiver that I really like in this draft. And again, there's a ton of wide receivers in this draft. You never know. I know we have 15. I may be able to give you maybe a bonus 4 or 5 at the end of the video, depending on where we're at that point as far as time goes. But stay tuned to see where we can go. We might even go up to 20 wide receivers. Who knows? That might be a little bit of craziness. But we talk about Troy Franklin here, the wide receiver out of Oregon. Let's kind of dive a little bit deeper and see what he was able to provide. Troy Franklin was a 6'3", 187-pound wide receiver. His production accelerated, this past fall as he continued to show that deep speed and advanced route running at 6'3", 187. I love his efficiency at 3.32 yards per route run, which ranks 6th among wide receivers with 50+ targets. He has a fluid movement skills, and he really is a true space creator. He's a high yards after the catch type of ability. Now, one thing I do wish that Troy Franklin would do is maybe gain a little bit more weight so he can kind of not be pushed around so much with the cornerbacks in the NFL. But I think overall, I wouldn't say not as big as like an AJ Green, but the frame, like the lanky type of frame like an AJ Green, is really what you're getting out of Troy Franklin. I'm hoping that he can maneuver his ability out of the way. Maybe if he does stay at 187, 190, he needs to be able to move and not be affected by the press coverage. I think we could possibly see that with Troy Franklin. I can't wait to see where he goes. Now, the other guy I have here in the B tier is going to be Adonai Mitchell, the wide receiver out of Texas. Another wide receiver that I really like, kind of being overshadowed sometimes by Worthy because of his so much speed. But Mitchell showed in the combine that he's almost just as fast as Worthy. Worthy ran that 4.2. Well, Mitchell ran the 4.3. So very speedsters wide receivers out there, a nice big body type of wide receiver who can get the job done. Let's dive a little bit deeper into Mitchell, what he was able to provide. He was a 6'4", 196-pound wide receiver who ends up transferring to Texas from Georgia in 2023. He ended up putting up some solid numbers both in Georgia and in Texas, but he really grew as a wide receiver while he was at Texas. He's extremely physical and a great run blocker on the outside. He brings nice size and advanced route running to the NFL that he should be able to find some success in that red zone. He wins downfield with ease and has great speed while being effective in space. He definitely displays, I would say, some consistent hands, and he likes to have good ball tracking ability, which is some of the things that I really enjoy seeing out of my wide receivers. That's the one thing when I'm doing my film, you guys might see a lot of times I might start mentioning about their ball tracking ability. I want to make sure that they can secure the ball and not looking up the field too early. Especially in the NFL, that can just get you into trouble having a lot of drops. Mitchell does not do that. He played for a nice offense in Texas, and I think he's going to do just as well. I believe he's going to be a first-round pick easily, just based off of the numbers he was able to produce, and he ended up having an amazing combine. I think that Mitchell is going to be a slam dunk. Let's go ahead and look at the board real quick here. We got the 2 filled in at the S tier, 2 in the A tier, and we got the 2 at the B tier. We still have 3 at the C tier to fill out and 6 in the D tier. First guy in the C tier that we're gonna go over is gonna be Keon Coleman, that wide receiver out of Florida State. It's a lot of up in the air with Keon Coleman, right? There's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad. Some people are really high on Keon Coleman, some people are not so high on, almost writing this guy off the board. I'm almost kind of in the middle. That's why I have him in my C tier right now. Let's just dive a little bit deeper to Keon Coleman, see if we can kind of figure out where it's going right or where it's going wrong. So Coleman is a 6'4", 215-pound wide receiver. Interesting, really prospect. You know, he spent his first 2 seasons at Michigan State before transferring to Florida State in 2023. He was an absolute score machine, sporting a 22% touchdown rate with that 6'4" and 215-pound frame. He has a special ability to really high point that football, has very nice tracking ability as well, and good body control, which makes him a good red zone target. He's definitely a contested catch monster. He's one of those guys that I think that's why he rose on a lot of people's boards. He's good at creating those highlight type of plays. So people look at him like, oh my gosh, we got to get some Keon Coleman on our fantasy rosters. But I just want to say there's more to it than being a spectacular catch kind of guy. I think Keon Coleman, with the good coaching and the ability to really see the ball in, right, have even better tracking ability, securing some of these catches, I think he could be quite well. He's got the size, he's got the frame, he's got the lengthy arms, and can make some incredible throws, or catches, I should say. Almost like Odell Beckham type of catches, like crazy throws. Keon Coleman, we'll have to wait and see what we get. So the next guy that we have here in the C tier is going to be Xavier Legette, that wide receiver out of South Carolina. Here's another big body, physical type of wide receiver that I really enjoy watching, especially all of his film. Let's dive a little bit deeper in Xavier Legette here. 6'3", he's a 227-pound wide receiver. He really bullies defensive backs. He was the recipient of 38% share of the team's total receiving yards. I'm gonna say it again, 38% share of the team's total receiving yards. Legette has incredible speed and quickness and has great release from the line of scrimmage. I would say that he is a contested catch specialist as well as a vertical threat. He displays great body control, has dominant hands, and accelerates well in a straight line, right? I love watching him make spectacular catches on the boundary line as well. There's so many even highlight plays you can go see of Xavier Legette making some catches that you're just like, how the heck did he catch that? Not quite Keon Coleman style, but he made some spectacular catches. I just like the physicality that I see from Xavier Legette. I think he's not going to have any problems getting open in the wide, just pushing off these cornerbacks and finding the space, finding the hole for his quarterback to make some plays. Xavier Legette, another guy that I believe could be into the first round of the NFL draft. We'll have to see how it all plays out. Let's go over the last guy we have here in the C tier. It's going to be another Texas wide receiver, Xavier Worthy, the speech of the guy who broke the combine record with a 4.2 240 at the NFL Combine. Guys, this guy is electrifying. Let's dive a little bit deeper into this tape. Xavier Worthy is a 6'1", 172-pound wide receiver, extremely fast, a very skilled route runner, right? He's explosive before and after the catch. Even at his size, he's fearless working over the middle of the field. Worthy has good vision in the open field and is a very slippery wide receiver. He has a very quick first step off of the line and a very good ball tracking ability. Now, I think he is an absolute nightmare for defenders to be able to guard this guy. He can shift from one side to the other, blitzing all over the place. They don't know how to defend this guy, and they shown in college football he was just losing defenders, and I think he could probably do that again in the NFL, especially if Xavier Worthy starts working out of the slot. Some of these slot corners, they're not going to be able to keep up with Xavier Worthy. I think they have to be moving over one of the top 2 corners on Xavier Worthy just to try to slow this guy down. Probably play a lot of safety high over the top just to try to kind of contain this guy, just he can break one through and he is gone. But let's look over what we have so far out of the wide receivers. We see we have the 2 in the S tier, 2 in the A tier, 2 in the B tier, and we've already filled out the 3 in the C tier. Now I do have 6 wide receivers here in the D tier, and the first guy that we're gonna go over in this D tier is gonna be Ladd McConkey, that wide receiver out of Georgia, somebody who is starting to rise on my board quite a bit. He's shown really good at the senior bowl practices. He was looking really good, right? I just like what I see. I'm seeing a little bit of Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman type-esque of wide receiver, maybe even a little Cooper Kupp in him, right? Somebody who's shifty, can get out of his breaks and make plays. Let's dive a little bit deeper in Ladd McConkey. We're looking at a 6', 185-pound wide receiver, amazing route runner, right? Really showcased all of his skills, like I say earlier, especially in those senior bowls, right? He was exceptional yards after the catch, his vision, and he possesses nice elusiveness, great intangibles, and has the ability to create space effectively downfield. He has reliable hands at all 3 levels of the field and gets to top speed very quick. He reacts to off-target passes, which can be an actual good useful trait in the NFL, especially for somebody if you want to play as a slot wide receiver, can do a good out route, in route, some slant routes, get really easy first downs. Like I said, reliable hands. Somebody that I think can make a name for himself in the NFL and possibly a nice fantasy football asset for you if he lands with the right offensive situation. Let's move on to the next guy in the D tier. We're talking about Malachi Corley, the wide receiver out of Western Kentucky. Another wide receiver that I like, another shifty wide receiver that I absolutely like. He's one of those guys, he's like the yards after the catch type of monster. Let's dive a little bit deeper into Corley. When we look at him, we're looking at a 5'11", 210-pound wide receiver who played 92% of his snaps in college football into the slot. He's an explosive playmaker. I've heard a lot of Deebo Samuel comparisons throughout the entire offseason. His build is like a truck, right? He has just tons of physicality and aggression after the catch. A lot of people call him, like I was saying earlier, I would say the yards after the catch king, right? So he has nice contact balance and speeds up quick, both downfield and in short area yardage. Yet another wide receiver. I even have him down in my D tier, but I think all these people that are in the D tier can even make a name for themselves in the NFL, especially in the slot. So I'm liking what Malachi Corley gives you at Western Kentucky. Go over the next guy we have here in the D tier. We're talking about Roman Wilson, that wide receiver out of Michigan. Another one of those guys I think can make a name for himself, especially probably in the slot. I think he can do some well. Like I said, a lot of these guys in the D tier, the wide receiver is deep this year in fantasy football and going to be into your rookie drafts. If you need a wide receiver, this is the year to have some picks. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this Michigan wide receiver. He is a 6 foot, 192-pound wide receiver, extremely fast, quick, accelerates very, very well. He broke out as a senior in Michigan's run-heavy offense, which is hard to do. He accounted for 50% of the team's receiving touchdowns. He separates consistently at all three levels and has very sharp footwork when moving laterally. Wilson has reliable hands with a good catch radius. I really do love his route running ability, and he really showed that at the Senior Bowl. Really 6 foot wide receiver, very shifty, can get open quite easily. And like I said, against other competition of his level, he was able to show out quite a bit. I can't wait to see where Roman Wilson lands in the NFL draft. The next guy in the D tier, we're talking about Jalen Polk, that wide receiver out of Washington, on the other side of Rome Odunze. Again, Jalen Polk, I think is going to be a very good wide receiver, and I hate that I have to have him way down here in the D tier, but I had to tier these guys out to where I think they're going to be fantasy relevant. But again, Jalen Polk, you get him on a good situation, he has the capability of being a good wide receiver. Let's dive into his stats just a little bit. Polk, we're looking at going to be a 6'2", 204-pound wide receiver. He broke out the season alongside of quarterback Michael Penix, and like I said, Rome Odunze earlier. He's a precision route runner and a violent runner, really, in the open field. He has incredible hands with exceptional hand strength, with remarkable ability to secure and maintain control of the ball in contested catch situations. He's very, very good when he has that catch and run. There's a lot of times I saw him catch the ball, he would turn up and he's going to look to either run over somebody or get some extra yards. That's something you want to see in the NFL, especially in fantasy football. Given the opportunity, he could be a wide receiver that's giving you as many fantasy points as possible. I love to see that from my wide receivers. Let's go over to the next guy we have here in the D tier. We're talking about Jacob Cowing, that wide receiver from Arizona. Cowing, another one of these wide receivers, a little guy, a little bit shorter, right, than what I would like, under 6 foot, but he has the moves. Let's just dive into him just a little bit deeper. Cowing is a 5'11". He's a good straight line speed type of wide receiver, 175 pounds, stretches the middle of the field very easily, and he easily runs away from defenders in college. He thrives on putting those catch and run situations, has good vision, and can make people miss. The one thing that I do like about Cowing is that if you're not running away from people in college, you can't expect to run away from people in the NFL. A lot of people in the NFL, they're faster, they're stronger, they're bigger. So knowing that he was running away from people with ease in college, I think he might even have the ability to run away from people in the NFL. And I think give him in a good slot or wide receiver situation, we can see Jacob Cowing put up some quite decent numbers. And again, in my D tier, you're finding somebody like Jacob Cowing, I think it's a phenomenal thing, right? Let's go over the last guy here, number 15, right? Gonna be in the D tier. We're going over Ricky Pearsall, the wide receiver out of Florida. Look a little bit deeper into Ricky Pearsall here. He was a 6'1", 190-pound wide receiver, natural ability to separate and create space. Very good slot wide receiver. Technician with his route running and makes those sharp cuts. He's another one of those guys, like an early young Adam Thielen type of player, right? Really good on the route running, precision type of route running. and just finds that open space for his quarterback. I like what I see from Ricky Pearsall. I had to put him up here in this D tier. But let's go ahead and look over the overview of all the 15 wide receivers that we have here. We've got the 2 in the S tier, 2 in the A tier, 2 in the B tier, 3 in the C tier, and we ended up going over with 6 in the D tier. Now, I kind of hinted along this in the video a little bit earlier. We had 15 to go over, but I am feeling very, very frisky, and there is more wide receivers that I'm super excited about. Let's just go ahead and dive into maybe 5 more wide receivers, a bonus type of wide receivers for you guys who has stuck through the entire video. Guys, before we go over these next or last 5 wide receivers, leave a comment down below. What do you guys think of my rating so far? Who did I leave out of my first top 15? Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. It really helps out the channel moving across from 800 subscribers here. But let's go ahead and dive straight into these last guys that I'm talking about. The first guy that I have is going to be in the E tier, I guess you can call it, is going to be Brendan Rice, that wide receiver out of USC. Really good pedigree, right? He's a Rice, right? So he's got to be good, right? Who knows? He ended up playing a lot of the ball with Caleb Williams, so he looked pretty good in a lot of situations. Let's dive a little bit deeper into Brendan Rice. 6'3", 210-pound wide receiver, utilizes amazing length and possesses that alpha dog type of mentality, probably because Jerry Rice was his father, but he comes down with those 50-50 balls quite often. I'd say he has a good catch radius, nice burst off the line of scrimmage, great boundary awareness, and good body control. He's a natural hands catcher, right? And that's what you want to see. I kind of mentioned earlier into my video, that's what you want to see out of your wide receivers. And I really enjoy watching him play football. I had to add him, obviously, as number 16 in my wide receiver rankings list right now. Let's go over the next guy that I have in my E tier. We're talking about Javon Baker, that wide receiver out of UCF. Another wide receiver that I really enjoy watching playing football. He started at Alabama, ended up transferring over to UCF, and I'm telling you, he was dominant over there for the Knights. So let's dive a little bit deeper into Baker. We're talking about a 6'1", 208-pound wide receiver, former 4-star recruit, and like I said, he began his college career at Alabama. A lot of people don't even realize that. He was relatively quiet until he transferred right to UCF, but he absolutely broke out and emerged as a true deep threat. In 2023, Baker averaged 21.9 yards per catch with a 17-yard per average depth of target, right? So his A-dot 17 yards, right? Love that to see that. Baker shows excellent short area quickness, which helps him with create those separation I like. And I love that Baker gives good effort as a down the field blocker as well, especially when you're coming into a late round wide receiver drafting somebody like this. You need to be able to have that guy get on the field, and if he's a blocker, a really good blocker, there's more opportunity for him to get on the football field. I think Javon Baker has the opportunity of doing it. I like the talent that he brings. He has a good pedigree. I like Javon Baker. Had to add him to my list here. The next guy that we have here that's going to be in my E tier is going to be Jamari Thrash, that wide receiver out of Louisville. Another wide receiver that I do like. I like a lot of the film that I ended up watching. Let's dive a little bit deeper in this guy. 6'1" wide receiver, 185 pounds. Separates off the line of scrimmage quite well. Nice catch radius. If you throw it in his vicinity, he is going to bring it down, right? He's a speedy wide receiver that can really move well laterally. Very twitchy and slippery with the ball in his hands. He's very difficult to bring down. He ended up showing really, really good. Also in the Senior Bowl, somebody that really showed out on film to me. I think he has a determination of catching the football and becoming a reliable wide receiver. I think maybe somebody that goes either undrafted or very late in the NFL draft, somebody that could possibly make a name for himself. Keep him on your radar. The next guy I have here in my E tier, we're going over with Jermaine Burton, that wide receiver out of Alabama. Another wide receiver that I did like what I saw on film. Again, he was a lot higher in my rankings earlier, but as things were going and I was shifting through a lot of film, we had to jock positions, and Burton ended up falling all the way down here at number 19, but that's quite all right. I still like him as a wide receiver. Going over some of his stats here. Burton is a 6', 194-pound wide receiver. He's been good both at Georgia and Alabama, but eventually shined bright in Alabama in 2023. He's an elite deep ball wide receiver with a nice breakaway speed. He has a 68% catch rate with a 20.5 yards per catch with 20 yards average depth of target. He seems easily to be able to adjust down the field to make some football plays, to be able to catch the football. Overall, look at maybe like a poor man's Gabe Davis in the NFL, somebody who can really stretch the field, and he's going to have a lot of boom games. I think this is what Burton's going to be able to give you. So look at the very last guy that I have on my list here, number 20. We're going over Johnny Wilson, that wide receiver out of Florida State. Really another big body body, really big type of wide receiver. Had to put him on here really solely because of his size, because if he can put it all together, I think he could be really good. There's a good chance he might even be able to be switching over to the tight end position in the NFL, but we're going to have to wait and see. As of right now, he is considered a wide receiver. Dive a little bit deeper into Johnny Wilson. We're looking at a 6'7", 237-pound wide receiver, elite catch radius, right? Big frame, big wingspan, and he is the epitome of high pointing the football, right? So he's unmatched in his in the verticality department. Short area burst, which makes him elite in the open field, and he is an elite playmaker at this point, right? At 6'7", you're going to be an elite playmaker. Well, you got to have a little bit more than just size in the NFL. You got to have some skill with that. We'll see what he can do just based off of size alone. I think he could be a decent prospect. Had to add him here and in here as number 20 for me. But hey guys, that is my video here. That is my top 20 wide receivers coming up, and I kind of tiered them out for you guys based on fantasy relevance prior to the NFL draft. Hit the subscribe button for me. I really appreciate. Hit the like button and leave a comment down below. What did you guys think about my top 20? Did I leave anybody out? Please let me know. I can't wait to see you guys on the next video. We'll see you guys next time.